What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Cultural Shift. This is Velani from Velani Consulting. And my guest today, I'm only going to say her first name because right before she got on this on the live call, I've tried 4 times to say her last name and I was completely unsuccessful. So I'm not going to butcher it. My guest today is Ruta. Ruta, how's it going?
It's great. My last name, I can say that out loud. It's Ruta Stasiunaite.
No. If you say it, you have to say it like the LinkedIn way, the way you have it on LinkedIn.
Ruta Stasiunaite. Whoop whoop.
See, now it's official. Now my audience knows exactly how to say your name. And anybody out there, if you guys mess it up after that introduction, we're just not friends anymore, right? We're not gonna talk after that. So how's it going, Ruda? How's it going over on your side?
It's great. It's been great. Actually, I'm in this moment in my life where I have caught myself a couple of weeks ago that I have fallen into my own trap, into a 9 to 5 kind of a situation, even if I'm my own boss. So I'm getting out of it and I'm planning to go work and travel for a couple of months. So that's really exciting.
That is amazing. Okay, so that's where probably I want to start off is you are kind of a world traveler, right? You've lived in 5 different countries so far.
Yes, and yet I wouldn't call it the world traveler yet. I
Uh-huh.
I wish I was. I will be. I am in my heart,
Mhm.
but I am a European, let's call it like that, traveler because I've lived in 5 different countries here in Europe.
Uh-huh.
I was studying and working in I grew up in Lithuania originally, but I lived in Germany, Austria, Belgium, and the Netherlands as well.
Wow.
And now I am based in Berlin.
Uh-huh.
However, in my heart, I am a traveler, and I feel like freedom is probably my number one value. So I want to live it now.
That is fantastic. I'll tell you, I actually came to Europe for the first time last year with my family. We flew into London, went to Paris. We then ended up going to Switzerland. Um, and then I believe it was back to London, and then we flew back out. I'll tell you, I fell in love with Switzerland. I absolutely did. We stayed at Interlaken, and it is one of the most beautiful places in the world that I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's true. I've been to Switzerland once, passing by and staying maybe for a couple of days.
Mhm.
Mountains, they're so gorgeous. The nature is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's a perfect blend, right? Like we're from the US. I don't see this a lot where you have a world that's technologically savvy, yet nature is still there. It's so prominent in the foresight where they have this tradition where they let their cows go into the field and let them explore. And I think it's the cows have like a homecoming ceremony after like 3 months
And
of
they
growing.
have those little bells.
Yes, and I find that so fascinating, right? To be able to value nature and value things that provide you energy and to be able to give it their own time and space. We don't have a lot of that here.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's the reason why I love Portugal. That's where I'm planning to go to
Uh-huh.
for a couple of months, remotely working and traveling at the same time, because it's so wild, because it's not commercialized, because it's still so raw and so wild and so beautiful, and you have
Right.
places where you're the only person on the entire beach, and
Yep.
that's exactly what I love so much. That's why I'm going to Portugal now.
Yeah, that does not happen here. You come to a beach here, you've got somebody literally 6 feet from you on both sides. We believe in crowded places here.
Yeah, yeah.
So Ruda, tell me a little bit about your journey. Honestly, I've seen a lot of your videos. I've been on your website. I'll tell my audience myself. I feel like your story is so transformational because I feel like everybody kind of goes through this path, right? Doing something that they not that they hated doing, but they just didn't realize it wasn't their passion, and then having this awakening, and then deciding to do this, like I call it, the cultural shift. Right? What happened to you, and how did you decide to change all of a sudden?
I guess it wasn't all of a sudden at the end, because if I really think about it, it was accumulation of several things happening in my life. So first of all, I guess, as I mentioned, as I in my heart, I am a world traveler. That's why after I finished my bachelor's studies back in Lithuania, I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to go meet new types of people, exploring the new cultures and stuff like that. And yet I was still somehow conditioned of
Mhm.
how I'm supposed to live my life, because in Lithuania it's kind of, conservative, and my family was a very typical, let's call it like that, family, nothing very special, no entrepreneurship, nothing like that. And
Right.
so for me, it was kind of normal to follow those typical steps in life. After you graduate, you go work,
Right.
you are in a relationship, then your relationship somehow evolves, and then in your mind you have this thought, by 30 I'm supposed to be married and have kids and that kind.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I have been like following all those steps, and yet somehow I was just not really enjoying it.
Mhm.
When I studied, I didn't like my studies, and then when I started working, it was fine, but then I thought, why is it only fine? Like, I don't want to live a fine life. I want to be excited about what I do, especially knowing how much time we spend on working on something. And
Yeah.
I think I've read it somewhere that in a lifetime, we spend on average about 90,000 hours working.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's at least 10 years of pure work.
Mhm.
Then when I realized that, I thought, no, I want to do something that drives me, that excites me, that really is getting me out of bed with a smile on my face, and not like, oh, I need to go to work again, like, so I think the tipping point was that there were so many different things happening in my life at the time that, first of all, I lost my mom when I was 23, she was 47. Then I was in a relationship that was not really working. Then I was just really somehow unfulfilled and unhappy, and I didn't know why. And I reached out to a coach, and that was the tipping point when everything started changing. I started working with a coach who asked me the right questions, who listened to what was going on in my head and in my heart, and how I created this story in my head of how I'm supposed to live my life. And that's when it started changing. It wasn't just an overnight situation, it was
Right.
definitely a process. But starting to work with the coach was definitely the very beginning of it all.
I find that very fascinating because I can relate to that story. I feel like so many of us are what I call on autopilot, right, for the longest time. So I come from an immigrant family as well, and I tell this to people all the time. If you know anything about immigrant families, you better be good at either math, science. You better be a lawyer, doctor, engineer. You can't be a creative one in the family. That's just not what they value, and rightfully so. They were brought up in this world where if you're not in those three fields, you're never going to be able to make it. So just like you, I had a very hard time getting through, at least according to me, I had a very hard time getting through school. Just didn't really care about what I was studying, but finally made it through. Took a job in banking, became a district manager, and so on and so forth. But just completely unfulfilled, right? Like every day would wake up like I'm on autopilot. Had no passion for what I was doing, and then one day just kind of decided, that's it, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what that moment was, what triggered it, what was that switch. And probably like you, I'm pretty sure it was building up for a long time, and finally a decision point came in my life. But that awakening part, right, the part where you decide, I don't want to do this anymore, now that you are teaching people how to do that, when have you seen that awakening? Is it something that again just happens overnight, or is it something that a coach has to come in and talk you through? Because people have a very hard time getting out of their own way sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah. It definitely took a while, because in the very beginning,
Mhm.
I just needed to understand the very basics of what is the story that I am telling myself?
Mhm.
What are the limiting beliefs? What are the things that I don't allow myself to do, to be, to live, all of those kind of things. And it really took me at least a year,
Okay.
about 40 coaching sessions, 40 hours of being coached,
Wow.
to actually really understand, okay, now I want to help others to go through the same process.
Mhm.
Because in the beginning, I mean, I was accumulating new information around who I am, what I want, what's holding me back, why it's holding me back, and all of those kind of underlying reasons. And there was really a lot of resistance to actually break through and to go for it. There was a
Right.
lot of fear. There was a lot of um, uncertainty, the fear of unknown, fear of failure. What will people say about me, and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so it really took me a while to build the strength within me, that this is actually why I am here. That's exactly what I am built to do. And I absolutely love having deep conversations. I always loved deep conversations since I
Right.
was a little girl. Actually, it's really funny when I remember my childhood.
Mhm.
I kind of avoided hanging out with other kids because I
Yeah.
was more curious to listen to what the grown-ups were talking about.
Yeah.
Now when I look back, it's like, oh, interesting. I just always liked some next level conversation.
Right.
And yeah, so it took me a while. And then one day, um, I thought, okay, if every single person on this planet would do something that they love, would
Mhm.
understand who they are and what they love, and do it, the world would be a better place. Not only better, but there would be no inequality. There would be no power games. There would be no wars. There would be none of this.
Yeah.
Because people would be just happy. They would be content. They would be doing something that's aligning with what they want. And so there would be no need of any war.
Yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't have this imposter syndrome, right? Like you'd wake up and you go to work and you just be happy, right? It's such a simple concept to solve so many different problems, and I think people just have a problem with simplicity. Things just can't be that easy, but sometimes they really truly are. It's so funny that you said that. I recently had an interview where somebody asked me, how did I decide my why, right? Why do I do what I do? I told them the exact same story. I was like, I didn't admit it before, but in high school and middle school, all the way through college, I was the dear Abby of the group. I was the one that people would come to and kind of talk about their problems, and I enjoyed the one-on-one a lot more than the group conversations. Right, the one-on-one meaningful conversations. That's what I enjoyed the most, and I didn't realize it until I sat down again with a coach and figured out what is it that I really truly like. And we came to this conclusion that I enjoy talking about the one-on-one and breaking through barriers. But I'm not a fan of when there's 20 people sitting in a group and everybody's just trying to talk on top of each other. I feel like there's no value in that content. And that's how I came to my why of helping people. So I think the stories are very similar. So now that you found your passion, now that you found your vision, where do you see your company, your life and success coach company 10 years from now? Where do you see yourself in the future?
Very good question. I visualize a lot, so
Yeah.
I'm actually really spending a lot of time understanding how do I see myself, and how do I want to create that impact that I want.
Mhm.
And I do imagine, um, not necessarily writing books, but I guess releasing audiobooks,
Mhm.
releasing some kind of online courses so that it's as accessible to people as possible to understand who they are, so that they go on their own pace through the process of self-discovery to really understand who they truly are. Because we I think probably 98% of all of us
Mhm.
have never really asked ourselves those questions: who I am, what I truly like, what is it that drives me, all those kind of things. They're so essential around how we choose our life, like how we choose to live our lives.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I would love to expand in that way, in maybe digital space, probably through different shapes and forms, to spread the word that, hey, you don't have to suffer, you don't have to live a life without having a direction.
Right.
And I have to say, actually, something very important here. It doesn't mean that you have to per se have some kind of a passion or drive, as in the in a way of work. You can also be passionate, and your purpose might be related to your family, for example. If your family is the number one thing in your life and you want to provide for your family, as long as that's what you have kind of decided for yourself, that that's your ultimate goal, to make yourself and your family happy, that's great. As soon as you are in line with that idea
Mhm.
and don't play as a victim, but you actually accept that,
Yeah.
okay, this is who I am. I want to live my life like that. I want to provide for my family. And that's already a great purpose to have.
No, that's absolutely correct. So when you're working with people, when you're trying to find their purpose, what is the biggest thing that you look for? It is it something that just makes them happy? Is it something that they've done previously that they just haven't realized? What is that aha factor in their life?
I think it's a combination of a few things. So what you mentioned, definitely something that they maybe already have done in the past. Maybe they were doing it as children, for example. They really loved painting or dancing
Yeah.
or something like that. Something that came naturally to them.
Hmm.
It could also be developed. A I really believe that you don't have some kind of um, defined or predefined talents.
Hmm.
Maybe you are a bit more naturally drawn into certain hobbies or certain skills, but you can also develop your skills and
Yeah.
develop your passions, as long as you have the curiosity. And if you follow that curiosity, if you're like, this is something that draws my attention, and you follow that curiosity, you don't even have to push yourself and to motivate yourself, because it becomes natural to you. And so it's a combination of following that energy, following curiosity, understanding what has been drawing your attention in the past and what is drawing attention right now, and combining that, all of those puzzles of a pieces of this huge puzzle into one.
I will completely agree with you. So when I was growing up, this is a very embarrassing story. I don't think I've ever said this on camera. It's the first time I'm actually saying this. I wanted to be a Bollywood actor. I used to do stage shows and dance shows, and I would do acting. I really truly enjoyed the melodrama, the colors, the song sequences. I really did. Like, just I was a complete fan of it, and probably because my dad was such a big fan of movies himself. Like, my dad and I never really had deep conversations, but my favorite times with him are just sitting next to him while he's got his tea and I'm sitting there and I'm watching a movie with him. And those are the times that I remember the most. But again, when I got into the corporate world and when I finally had to take a step back and realize what I wanted to do, I realized it wasn't the acting, it wasn't the dancing, it was just being up in front of an audience and being able to present that I enjoyed the most. That is a part that really called to me, to be able to get up and speak in front of an audience. And that was one of the things that pushed me into this space, into getting in front of the camera, to becoming a keynote speaker, to having my own podcast. I love the content creation part of it. As time consuming as it is, and as I won't say tedious, but again, yeah, as much time as it takes out of my day, I truly enjoy it. Sometimes it'll be 5 in the morning and I'm still cutting a video and I don't realize it. And then I'm up the very next day, but I love it. It inherently gives me this extra energy that I never had when I was doing a corporate job. So I can relate to that.
Well, you said something very, very important here, actually, because some people say, "Oh, but I hate this job and I don't want to have anything to do with that type of job." The thing is, there probably are certain aspects of a specific job or a skill or a hobby that you had that you like, and there are certain aspects that you don't like. And that's very important when you are actually evaluating and in a way auditing your life through this process, to really ask yourself honestly, okay, so in my case, for example, as I was working as a project manager, I was like, so what exactly I do like about project management? And I realized I love diversity because I was working with different types of people from different departments, and I love bringing all of them together as a people's manager because that's what drives me. I love working with people. And that was very similar to your situation, where you just very like specifically identified what exactly you love about Bollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. So that leads me into, there's a phrase that you have on your website, and I've heard you say it in multiple videos, and I think you actually just said it before we came on board. I find it very passionate. And it is about freedom. And you say freedom is being true to yourself, right? And again, something so simple, yet people have such a hard time managing that. How did you come to that conclusion? What made you realize that that is what freedom is?
So for me, freedom was back in the days when I was not really as conscious and really understanding who I was and what I wanted. For me, it was about geographical freedom or financial freedom, and having this free lifestyle and moving somewhere and traveling and being remotely accessible via internet. And then at some point I realized that what really the pure real freedom is all about is when you are completely in line with yourself, with your true being. And what I mean by that is when you feel like you're doing the right thing, when you don't care about what people will say, because you know that what you're doing is making you happy. It's the right thing. You feel fulfilled doing it, and you just feel in line. You feel light. You don't feel like you're running away. You don't feel like you're pretending. You don't feel like you're having this imposter syndrome, pretending to be someone you're not. But you're so living your life true to yourself that's what freedom means to me.
That is that is probably the truest thing that I've heard anybody say on here. Um, I have to ask you, in the world that we're in right now, right? The current environment, the way the world has been divided and separated into these different silos, there are people who are having a hard time dealing with the complexities of today, right? Because now the question comes into, do you follow your passion, or do you let go of something that's so stable, right? Because following your passion is a risk, it's a fear. It comes with its own set of drawbacks, where there's going to be a time where following your passion is going to cause you to let go of some financial security. Have you dealt with that within your clients?
The thing is that in my opinion, there is no right or wrong at the end of the day. And I, as a coach, I never really give advice because it's the client's final decision what they want to do. Some people are more risk takers and some people are less. And for example, if I look at myself, when I quit my job to pursue my transformational coaching career, I was terrified as well. And because I come from a background where having stability, financial stability, was always very, very important to me and my family and the people around me. However, if you feel that this is exactly what you're supposed to do in your life, and you stop doubting yourself, the fear of failure is just, it doesn't exist anymore, because you know that this is the right thing to do and you will do everything to succeed. You don't accept a failure as an answer, because failure doesn't exist. Yes, you will fail. Yes, you will make mistakes. It might not be a very smooth journey, but you will succeed at the end. However, now saying that, I'm not saying that in this current situation that we're in is very easy to do, because indeed maybe it is more difficult in some cases to ensure that you are financially stable. And for me personally, I really needed to make sure that I will financially be able to sustain myself, and only then I will actually be able to function properly, to think clearly, and to make the right decisions for my business. And so I think it really depends on a personal choice. Like, what if they need that financial stability? Maybe they have certain support from their peers, from their families, that they already know that they will be fine. And if they know that deep inside, they know that they will be fine, then why to hold back? It's just a waste of your time if you're holding yourself back. On the other hand side, a lot of people just choose to go in parallel, still having a stable financial income, and at the same time building their side hustle, for example, and focusing on other things in life, which is completely fair as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the clients that I've dealt with, one of the things that really had an aha moment for me was he continued to tell himself that he didn't have enough time in the day, like you said, for the side hustle, and he shouldn't have left his job. That was pretty obvious at that point in time. And one of the things that we did was we sat down and we kind of broke down his entire day. So my program, we talk about the 5 habits of success that almost everybody implements to be able to break through from anywhere to wherever they want to go. And one of the habits that I have is systemization. Right? You need to be able to implement discipline into your day, so you know from a day-to-day basis what you're doing, and decision making now is not paralyzing you. Right? You wake up and you know exactly what you need to do because you've already planned out your day, your quarter, your year on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. We sat down and we figured out that about 9 to 10 hours of his day was just going into random activities, and which was trying to plan, trying to figure out what to do next, watching obviously a little bit of TV, driving back and forth to things that weren't needing to be happening. So I think that's why a coach is so important, right? Because sometimes you're so close to perspective, you're so close to what you're seeing that you can't really take a step back and say, this is not as important as I think it is. Right? If I just took a step back, I'll realize there's activities that I can let go of, and I can make some things happen that I've been holding off for years, for decades, for some people.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is also, you have to be intentional with your time. And when you said all of this, I was like, that's exactly what has shifted in my own personal life so much in the last year, because I became much more intentional around how I spend my time.
Yeah.
I don't have TV. I don't watch Netflix. I don't scroll on social media. I just don't give my precious time on things that are not making me happier at all. I focus on things that intentionally bring closer to where I want to be in my life and who I want to be in general. And so that what you're saying is so incredibly important. And I think there's a quote that I read somewhere quite recently, and it says something around the lines, you cannot ignore the unimportance of practically anything. Okay. And what it says, what it actually means is that almost everything that we do in our daily lives is a distraction from our goals. And that's the thing, that most of us, we don't have goals. We just live, what you mentioned earlier, we kind of live on this autopilot.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a vision, we don't have a goal. And it's very easy to just waste hours, days, months, years on something that doesn't bring us anywhere further, anywhere closer to where we want to be. And so being intentional, not distracting ourselves, that's so key.
Yeah, I want to make sure I put some evidence behind what you're saying. So my life shifted when I read Stephen Covey's 4 quadrants, right? The important, the not important, the urgent, the not urgent. And when I broke things down, I realized how many things were in my not important, not urgent quadrant that I gave practically my entire day to. And that shift is what helped me. So like when you said be intentional with your day, this is my basic 10-year guideline. So I have my why, my values, my 10-year plan. I have my 3-year plan, my 1-year targets, and my quarterly initiatives. So when I say that I wake up and I know exactly what I'm doing, I really do, right? The decision making has now been taken out because on a quarterly basis, I'll sit down and I'll do this. So I have times where I'll work on my life, and then I have times where I'll work in my life. And I think, like you said, the intentional part is so important because I remember a bulk of my life was spent on getting up, probably spent about a good hour and a half, 2 hours trying to figure out what is it that I need to accomplish. I was looking for issues rather than working on opportunities. I kept looking for issues. I'm like, what issues do I need to solve? And the days when, surprisingly, when there was no issues, I would say, okay, fine, let's go binge watch, right? Let's go watch TV, let's go out with friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you need a little bit of entertainment to kind of get you through the day, go for it. But that's what my life had become. And ever since I started working on opportunities, my life has completely shifted. Right. I've met people that I would have never met. I met you, and you're in Berlin and I'm here in Houston, Texas. Last week I met an ex NFL player, Jedediah Collins. I never thought I would meet such amazing people. My bubble was so small and now it's expanded. And one thing that I again I want to put evidence behind, you and I spend so much time on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is, at least for me, is my platform of choice. But like you said, I don't scroll on LinkedIn. I don't go through the feeds. I don't spend hours and hours of my day on there. I put something that's of value. I will look for something that's of value for an hour a day, and I've got that blocked off. And after that, I will let it go. Right? I don't check my followers. I don't check my feed. I don't go back and forth. I have a dedicated hour a day that I respond back to people, which, because I want to make sure I do. And then after that, I have things that I need to go take care of. So even for social media people who build their life around social media, you can get away from it. You can walk away and have a true life for yourself and not be constrained by these mediums that are bringing you revenue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there are so many ways of killing time in general. Like I used to be compulsively online shopping, watching Netflix, consuming social media, even binge eating, those kind of things. And I also spend time with the wrong people, and all
Yes.
kind of things. And actually, if that happens to the listeners listening out there, you have to ask yourself honestly, what are you running away from? What is behind all this? Why do you try to numb yourself from something that's deep inside of you, and you're afraid to face it? And because the thing is that there is something behind it. It cannot just be like, oh, I'm numbing myself, but I'm super happy.
Yeah.
Has it ever happened?
No. I don't think a lot of people realize what happiness truly feels like, right? Like you hear about it, you see it in movies, you kind of talk to people, read about it, but when you actually truly wake up to something that fulfills you, because according to me, happiness is not birthdays, anniversaries, New Year's, these big events in your life. I think happiness is just getting out of bed with a smile to say, okay, let's go do this. That, according to me, is happiness. These small moments in your life that happen, that eventually, these small bricks that build up a big house, where you're not waiting for, again, New Year's celebrations, birthdays. You're not waiting for happiness. Happiness is always there for you. So when you have a bad day, doesn't matter, because you've got happiness all around you. You don't need a big event to come to get rid of that bad day for you.
Absolutely. I like it the way you say it, because it's kind of creating happiness for yourself
Yeah.
rather than expecting the external world to make you happy.
Mhm.
You create happiness. And at the end, what I believe in is that we create happiness inside of us. And
Yeah.
it's like we hear so many stories of millionaires, billionaires who are miserable
Mhm.
compared to people who have nothing and they just grow their own vegetables somewhere and they're the happiest people on the earth.
Yeah.
Well, exactly the thing. If you create happiness within you, then you don't need anything more.
Yeah. You said something that I want to touch base on is evaluating the people in your life, right? Finding the right people. So again, the 5 habits that I have, one of them is to select the right people in your life. I have a pretty strict method of how I do that, but I want to ask you, when you're working with your clients, what do you do when you find somebody in their life that you know is, I don't want to say poisonous, but somebody who shouldn't be given as much importance? Do you phase them out? Do you take some time away from them? How do you help them kind of get away from that person who's so prominent in their life? Ruda? Hello?
Are we back?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure what happened there.
I don't know, but you were talking about people, selecting people.
Yeah, I what I was asking is, when you do find somebody in one of your clients' life that you know shouldn't be given that much prominence, how do you work with them to maybe distance themselves from that person? Because that is one part of my program that I usually spend the most amount of time on, because it's so hard for people to walk away from somebody who's been in their life for so long, but probably shouldn't have been given this much importance.
Mhm. Well, again, I don't give advice
Mhm.
because at the end, if I say something, that creates resistance with the client. So then they would be like, defensive. No, but this person is very important to me. So I don't go in that kind of conversation. What I do in my practice, in my coaching experience with my clients, is that I ask the questions: what is it exactly that what are the positive things that this person brings in their life, what are the negative things, and we would just really go into the conversation around what they think about it, what serves them and what doesn't serve them, rather than what I think, because at the end I will never know what exactly is happening behind the scene, because I only see my client working with me and my client's story or line of the story. So I will never know what would the other person say. I would never know what actually happens in reality. So the thing is that I cannot choose for the client. The clients have to face their fears, and that's what we work through. That by asking the right questions, they start understanding that,
Mhm.
okay, well, if I want to be this person, if I want to be living my life like this, actually it seems like that person in my life is not really going in the same direction. So what should I do? And then they go into their own inner conversation to get their own answers. What is the right thing to do for them?
That makes sense. Okay. So hey, before we wrap up, I do wanna give the audience an opportunity to come find you. So if somebody wanted to connect with you, where can they find you and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I am on Facebook page as Ruta Stasiunaite, Ruta Coach page.
Mhm.
I am also on Instagram, Ruta Coach. I am on LinkedIn as Ruta Stasiunaite. So it's a very complicated last name, but I hope you will find me too. Yeah, you find me, connect with me, follow me, and follow what I have to say.
Absolutely. And guys, I'll make sure that I put a link to all of that onto the podcast page so that way you can get in touch with Ruda. Ruda, before we leave, any knowledge nuggets, anything that you want to leave the audience with? Again, especially in the times that we're in right now, I think people are all looking for motivation. What would you leave them with?
I think what's really important, what you mentioned a bit earlier about what kind of routines, daily routines we actually set ourselves into.
Mhm.
And to me, that daily routine is connecting with the present moment as much as we possibly can. And that doesn't necessarily only relate to the current situation in the world, but at any time, if you're going through any difficulties in life, if you have lost someone, if you have lost a job, something is happening in your life, if you're in the present moment and you practice gratitude,
Mm.
then there will be no space for any fear, for uncertainty, and any of the negative emotions. So be present.
That's amazing. So is that something that you preach though? Gratitude. Is that something that helps you get through your days?
Absolutely. I journal every day. I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for that
Mhm.
day. And what it does, it really trains your mind to see, instead of obstacles, you start seeing opportunities. And that's something that you also mentioned
Yeah.
today. So it's absolutely powerful, really amazing.
That's amazing, Ruta. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And I love the fact that when you're talking to like minded people, it really just enhances the message that you're trying to present out there. And I really do appreciate you coming on board and being able to talk to the audience here and pass your message along to them.
Thank you so much for having me and inviting me.
Perfect. Well, guys, again, thank you so much for joining the Cultural Shift. Again, if you need help creating your own culture shift, get in touch with me, get in touch with Ruda, get in touch with any of the people that are on this podcast, and let's get you moving in the right direction. I will see you next time. Take care.